The Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. This is the Financial Survival Network.
Financial Survival Network is presented to you by Regal Assets. Buy and sell physical gold and silver through your existing retirement plan, 100% tax-free with Regal Assets. If you want to include physical gold or silver in your existing IRA or old 401k, request your free investment kit, which was recently featured in the Forbes and Smart Money Wall Street Journal magazines. Call toll-free 855-678-6620, 855-678-6620, or visit regalassets.com. Many people, myself included, believe that we're living in times of pure lawlessness, where we no longer have the rule of law, we have the rule of men, and laws get tossed in the garbage when it's in the interest of the financial elites for them to be tossed. And we see it more and more. My next guest, Ann Barnhardt, owned her own commodity brokerage firm. Back in November, she sent out a letter to all of her clients that she was closing the firm down because she felt after MF Global, none of their funds could be safeguarded. And she's here to talk about that, as well as current developments, many of which are disheartening. Hey, Ann, welcome to financialsurvivalnetwork.com.
Hey, thanks for having me, Carrie. It's a pleasure to be here.
And it's a pleasure to have you. So you've been retired for almost a year now. What's doing with that?
Well, it's not pleasant. Losing a significant portion of your income is never fun, and I'm definitely feeling the effects of it, but I wouldn't change a thing. There was absolutely no moral choice for me in the matter. I had to protect my clients, and I don't mind going broke, and I don't mind ending up in the gutter or homeless or however this winds out. What I could not have tolerated is anything bad happening to my clients, and thank God that's all been taken off the table now. So I'm grateful.
And from what you're saying, it appears that you have a conscience, and a very, very strict conscience. And yet we look at Wall Street, we look at the sociopaths who are running the system now, and there's not the slightest glimmer of conscience in them, is there?
No, not at all. In fact, most of these people, both male and female, who are elevated through the system, one of the psychological traits that's absolutely selected for in the modern financial world is that a person be either a sociopath or a full-blown psychopath. The difference is that sociopaths are able to feel compassion and empathy for people that they actually love, so they are capable of loving family members, things like that. A psychopath is completely incapable of feeling any love for anyone, including family members. And so that's the class of people that we're dealing with. That would be obviously Corzine. Corzine is clearly at minimum a sociopath and is probably a psychopath. And you can just go on down the line. It's all about taking advantage of people, raping people financially, wringing every last cent out of people, taking massive, massive risks with absolutely no concern or care for the damage that it does to other people. And that is a function of our godless culture.
Yeah, and people just seem to have lost faith in everything. Now, when you were running your company, all right, you ran it for the benefit of your clients, correct?
Of course. I was a commercial hedge broker. I specialized in cattle and grain, and most of my clients were ranchers and farmers who were actually producing the physical commodities. So it was the old school original paradigm, and just doing pure risk management for farmers and ranchers throughout the United States and Canada. And I mean, obviously, if you take care of your clients, then you don't have to worry about your own success. And furthermore, as you alluded to, I like to think that I have a conscience and that I'm not one of these sociopaths and psychopaths. And I definitely feel empathy for other people. And I'm a Christian and I fear God. And I know that if I do not live my life in accordance with the the law and the basic principles of fearing and loving God and loving your neighbor as yourself, that there is a non-trivial chance that I could end up in hell for all eternity. And I truly believe that. So yeah, again, a lot of people in the financial world really don't like to talk about religion and things like that. But guys, you need to stare this down right now, because what is happening is a pure function of the fact that God has been removed from our culture, most in particular over the last 50 years. We are now a godless culture, and if you have a godless culture, there is not going to be justice, there is not going to be the rule of law, there is not going to be any sort of integrity. You cannot even hope to have a functioning marketplace if there is no baseline integrity in your culture. And where that comes from is from fear of the Lord, is from religion and worshiping of God. Like it or not, guys, you have to deal with it.
Now, you're kind of espousing the golden rule of finance, do unto others as, you would have done to yourself, for lack of recall. And, maybe if people in the financial sector had that attitude, we wouldn't have the fraud and the out-and-out theft, because look at Libergate. 10 basis points on 800 trillion comes out to trillions of dollars. So it's rampant lawlessness and godlessness across the globe, isn't it?
Absolutely, no question. It's not just here in the United States. Europe, I think Europe is even more spiritually far gone than the United States is. And then when you get into the rest of the world, where the Judeo-Christian heritage isn't even present at all, there's a huge problem with with integrity and market integrity and trustworthiness. You're absolutely right.
So what's the solution here? Are we all just going to die and go to hell, or is there a road back that we can rediscover, the good, the moral, and, living to enrich ourselves and enrich everyone around us?
Well, I think the path forward is very, very clear historically, and all you have to do is open up the Bible and read the Old Testament. And every time this has happened to a culture, every time a culture has descended into total and complete godlessness and turned its back on truth and goodness and God Himself, the people are chastised. And how that's probably going to manifest in our culture is total economic collapse and hot war. And then and only then, this culture is so far gone that people are literally going to have to lose everything and be subjected to the pains of hot war before they get their minds right. And God will permit this to happen, because if that's the only way He can get people to snap out of their godlessness and shape up so that, as you said, people can avoid going to hell for all eternity, He loves us so much that He will let that happen to us. And at this point, I look at this culture and it's so despicable and it's so far gone. At this point, I'm just almost like, bring it. Let's do this. Let's get this period of chastisement started right now, because the longer we drag this out, the worse it's going to be for everybody.
Yeah, well, it's definitely disheartening to see the breakdown in values that most people believe it's okay to cheat, it's okay to steal, as long as you don't get caught. And there's this moral relativism that's emerged, that they're doing it, so I can do it too. And, we've all done things in our lives that we're not proud of, particularly that we know are wrong. And I think the tendency in society now is just to say, everybody does it, it's okay, just go take care of yourself. And we have this I guess, detachment from right and wrong, that it doesn't govern our actions anymore.
Well, exactly. And that's actually one of the key platforms of cultural infiltration that is executed by Marxists, is to get people, like you said, into a state of complete moral relativism, where people are convinced that everyone is their enemy, and that the only hope you have is to be more dishonest and more adept at lying and cheating than your neighbor is, because we're all in this dogfight for this limited set of resources. That is what Marxism preaches. That's how it riles up the proletariat class, which, in today's modern parlance, it's called community organizing. It's the Saul Alinsky school of community organizing. Just get everybody at everyone else's throats, completely remove God from the equation, and then instill a culture of complete moral relativism. Like you said, well, if that guy over there did it, then it's okay for me to do it. And not only am I going to do it, I'm going to do it 10 times worse so that I can get mine. That's our culture now in a nutshell. There is no charity. There is no brotherhood. There is no Christian love, spirit of self-sacrifice, nothing like that. And it all goes back at the end of the day to the fact that there is no fear of the Lord. There is no fear of any external supernatural consequence for anything that you do in your life. And when that's what your culture is, you are doomed to destruction without any question.
Yeah, rather remarkable. I mean, I'm not sure about the religious aspects of it. I'm not the expert theologian, but I do believe in a higher power, very much so. And I do believe that things happen for reasons that we don't understand, because our comprehension of the true universe and world is limited by our humanity. And we can only see kind of what's in front of us, or most of us can. But I do believe that we're just having this race for the bottom. And I think back, Anne, and I say, did the Romans, the Romans had their equivalent of American Idol, Roman Idol, and the loser got fed to the lions. And instead, the loser gets ridiculed by millions of people. We're not really that much further along than the Romans, and it certainly looks like we're gonna suffer a similar fate to them as well as the world, for that matter.
Oh, absolutely. And the reason why this situation is far more severe than the fall of the Roman Empire is because, remember, when the Roman Empire fell, information moved at about walking speed. And also remember that people, in the 4th, 5th, 6th century, most people were producing their own food and were largely self-sufficient. So when the Roman Empire fell, most people's lives didn't change dramatically. It was a very slow change that happened to most people. And certainly there wasn't mass starvation or anything. People kept growing their food and feeding their animals and slaughtering their animals, and life just kept going. Right. In this culture, nobody can produce their own food. We are completely helpless. There is no self-sufficiency whatsoever. We are utterly dependent upon functioning infrastructure and things like this, transportation, petroleum. The flow of petroleum is absolutely essential. And so when this civilization and this economy collapses, the fallout in terms of immediate impact to human lives is going to be massive and unprecedented.
Yeah, I totally know what you're saying, because once the trucks stop rolling, and they'll stop rolling all over the world. It's not just here, because whatever the petroleum stops, it's all bets are off. Now, the internet, let's talk about that, because it enables you and I to communicate. It enables you to get your message out. But there's a lot of garbage on there, a lot of negativity. Is it a force for good, in your opinion, or is it a force for evil?
Well, back to the conversation we were just having a few minutes ago. It's completely contingent upon the character and the morality of the people who are using it. There's massive amounts of porn and human trafficking and so on and so forth that's going on the internet. But on the other side, you're right. It's an absolutely incredible tool for people to be able to communicate with each other. But I can also go back and argue the other side. I am fiercely against the entire Facebook culture. I think that people are retreating into themselves and are not able to discern the difference between genuine human relationships and nonsensical, unreal relationships that they're having on the internet with people. Pixels flashing on a screen does not constitute a relationship. And, I've understood this before, but since I've gone viral in the last year and a half, and I look at my email box, and there are people who think that if they see a video of me on the internet, that they're somehow having a relationship with me and that we are friends. And you can see the just truly demented types of psychological things going on in people's minds just coming into my email box. And it really has driven home the point of how psychologically unhealthy a lot of this can be. If you use the internet, basically use it as a massive library, as the sum of human knowledge available at your fingertips, mapping, so on and so forth. Oh, it's fantastic. If you start using it as a substitute for genuine human relationships, friendships, it can be extremely dangerous. So jury's still out. We will probably lose the internet here at some point, and we'll see how civilization reacts. It'll either get a lot worse or a lot better. I would hope that the human relationship aspect would get better if people have the internet removed from their lives.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. One of the things that I found is, I've got, you have to separate friends from likes, and friending somebody on Facebook is not a sign of friendship, and yet people say, "Oh, I have 8,000 friends, followers on Facebook or Twitter," but I will tell you that I'm in a group, an internet broadcasting group, and we have webinars, and we do this a couple times a month. And recently there was an event in New York, and I got to meet a bunch of these people who I'd only been able to interact with over the web. And yet meeting them in person for the first time, it was like the barriers that you would have otherwise were totally gone. We already knew each other, and it was like meeting old friends. So while I don't believe the internet could be a substitute for friendship and intimacy, it definitely can facilitate it and enable you to connect with people, sometimes in very profound ways, from all over the globe. And that's one of the benefits of it, but it's not a substitute for human interaction by any stretch.
Oh, I agree. It's just a matter of being emotionally mature enough to discern that difference between mere interaction and genuine friendship. And as you would hope that most people would be emotionally mature and psychologically healthy enough to do that. But as our culture, swirls down into the gutter, more and more people are losing that emotional maturity.
Yeah, and that is sad. So, Anne, just a quick question. What do you see yourself doing in a year or 18 months from now? Where do you think life is taking you?
Well, I think my life is going to change dramatically. Whether or not hot war starts, if hot war starts, I will go and fight, and I don't expect to survive a hot war. If it doesn't, my vocation has been taken away from me. My income is massively reduced, so I can only anticipate that my living arrangements are going to, by necessity, change dramatically. I really don't know. It could be anything from staying here to ending up living in my car. I am psychologically preparing myself for any eventuality, and I'll just leave it in God's hands.
Yeah, I think we're all in God's hands, and I think what you stated, psychologically preparing yourself for any exigency, because you can't prepare for any possibility because there's an infinite number. You can prepare for certain ones that look more likely, but fate has a way of frustrating the best plans, the best laid plans of mice and men, as we know. So I think that's a really great piece of advice, to just prepare for anything, because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yes, sir. I agree.
So we find you on barnhardt.biz. And
yes.
Hey, it's really been great having you on, Anne. We will definitely talk to you in the future, because there's going to be more and more of these issues coming up, and the neglect and the soullessness of man just becomes more apparent by the day.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me on, Carrie. God bless, and God bless all your listeners.
And you too.